Millions of Americans have been paying attention to the weather, of course, and there's more, it looks like, going to be coming for millions of other Americans this weekend. But as snow has blanketed our country, there certainly has been, in addition to that, a flurry of news stories that deserve our attention. But not just our attention, they deserve a biblical perspective. So as we love to do here each and every Friday is to conclude the week and our Friday program with a Biblical Worldview segment. And joining me again today is Dr. David Closson. He's the director of the Center for Biblical Worldview here at Family Research Council. Dr. Closson, thanks for joining me as always. Happy Friday to you.
Happy Friday. Great to be with you, Jody.
All right, listen, before we get started, I want to begin with a clip. As we all know, Don Lemon was arrested, former anchor at CNN. He was arrested this past week for his role in the protest that took place at a church during a church service. Let me play this clip and then get your reaction.
Make no mistake, under President Trump's leadership and this administration, you have the right to worship freely and safely. And if I haven't been clear already, if you violate that sacred right, we are coming after you.
All right, we're coming after you. What's your overall reaction to this? And then broaden it a little bit more. How should Christians respond to this?
Well, Jody, as a Baptist, one of my deepest convictions is religious freedom. I think the Baptist Faith and Message says it best, that a free church and a free state is the Christian ideal. And so what the Attorney General said right there, again, is music to my ears. And I think all believers and those who are not believers either should want the Attorney General of the United States to be enforcing the laws of this nation, to be protecting our First Amendment rights, which the first is the freedom of religion. And so I think that's just really important, very encouraging to see from Pam Bondi. In regards to Don Lemon, the former CNN anchor, I'm not really surprised by this news, Jody. Just to be clear, it was a federal jury that has indicted Don Lemon. My understanding, he was arrested last night. I guess turned himself in now, and my understanding is he's now facing two charges. One is conspiracy to deprive others of their civil rights, meaning those churchgoers, and then he's also being charged with interfering with someone's religious freedom. So that would obviously be a charge under the FACE Act. And Jody, you know this, I'm not a lawyer, but I imagine the government's going to have a pretty strong case here. There are several videos circulating on X of Don Lemon in the parking lot a while before the church service starts, having interactions with these protesters. I saw even in one video, a video of him walking up to the leader of the protest, Nikema Levy-Armstrong, who has also been arrested. He walks up to her, kisses her, and then interviews her. And so I think there's going to be a lot of video evidence that Don Lemon clearly broke the law. And I think probably the most important thing is, even when Don Lemon was interviewing the church's pastor, Jonathan Parnell asked Don Lemon to leave. And instead of leaving immediately, he spends the next 9 or 10 minutes in the church, harassing members of the church. I know one woman who was fleeing the church even broke her arm. So again, Don Lemon was squarely in the middle of all this chaos. And so I guess the final thing I'd say, Jody, is, of course, Don Lemon is not a sympathetic figure for those of us who are social conservatives. But my hope, and I would encourage our viewers and listeners, let's be actually praying for Don Lemon. Of course, we want there to be justice. We need to be praying for justice. But how neat would it be if at the end of this, Don Lemon was exposed to the gospel? I think right now he's someone who's far from God. And so let's even be praying to that, and that Don Lemon will be someone who will actually listen to the words that Jonathan Parnell in that church was trying to teach him, that the hope of the world is the good news of Jesus Christ.
Yep. That's a great way for us to be praying as this moves forward. David, on a related note, it seems pretty likely, at least to me, that the escalation of violence against churches is something that is likely to continue. So first of all, would you agree with that or not? But From there, what would your advice be to pastors who might be in a similar situation as this that we saw in Minnesota?
Yeah, Jody, my fear is that the kind of escalation of violence is only going to continue. That seems to be the trajectory. Now, I'll say a couple of things. One, as Christians, we shouldn't be surprised by this. John 15 and 16, some of the last words Jesus shared with his disciples before he went across the Kidron Valley into the Garden of Gethsemane is that as they persecuted me, they're going to persecute you. And that's, the history of the church is one of persecution. In this country, we've enjoyed kind of an unusual stretch of time where we've had religious freedom and the ability to not be molested in our houses of worship. And so I do think the last few weeks have opened the eyes of a lot of pastors, a lot of ministry leaders, as far as what we ought to be doing and how we ought to be preparing. My friend Andrew Walker, professor at Southern Seminary, had a really helpful post on his X account where he specifically talked about issues related to church security in light of what happened in Minneapolis at City's Church. I would commend his post to pastors and ministry leaders. My conviction now, Jody, is that every church really needs to have a security plan in place, whether that's off-duty law enforcement personnel, whether it's retired law enforcement folks who are members of your church. You need to have a plan in place, policies in place to make sure that you are protecting the children who are entrusted to your congregation. Every church has children, the elderly, those who are going to be unsuspecting, and I think it's the obligation of the shepherds, of the under-shepherds of the church, to be thinking along these lines, how do we protect the flock? I think that's the thing that continues to stand out to me, Jody, as I reflect on what happened in Minneapolis. Those images of those children who are just terrified, teenagers who are crying, trying to get out the back of the church because they didn't know what was happening. And so let me give you actually a scripture that comes, Acts 20. That's actually when Paul was talking to the Ephesian elders, and he's giving them this exhortation there on the beach, and he tells them they ought to protect the flock. And I think in the 21st century, Jody, part of protecting the flock is having this plan in place. And I think this is especially crucial, Jody, for churches in places where Christian convictions are under attack even more. If you have a church in the Northeast or on the West Coast, I think it's even more incumbent. If your church has spoken out on the life issue or issues related to human sexuality in the family, I think it's really, really important and part of your duty to protect the flock to make sure that there's an actual security plan that your church has in place.
Good advice, and I would just add to we need to have a plan, but we do not need to be fearful. Right. God is with us, and He has not forsaken us, and that would apply individually and corporately. This is not a time to stay away from church. This is time to continue going and praying for our leaders, our country, our church family, our communities where we live, and to do so without a spirit of fear, which of course God has not given us. A spirit of fear. David, if I can switch gears with you here real quickly. Earlier this week, I know the Department of Human Health Services rescinded, and we're so grateful for this, a Biden-era rule that was related to the abortion drug. And, of course, you and I have talked about this for a long time here on Friday afternoon, and I know you've actually played a key role in crafting a significant Southern Baptist Convention resolution on chemical abortion last year. But can you just take a moment and explain to our audience what HHS did and why this rule matters so much?
Yeah, so Jody, the whole history of this goes back to 2022 with the Dobbs decision. Of course, the Dobbs decision overturned Roe v. Wade. The decision for abortion policy went back to the people and their elected representatives. We need to remember that in response to that, the Biden administration really took an all-government approach when it came to expanding access to abortion in every department, at every level of the federal government, including HHS. And so what happened in the aftermath of the Dobbs decision is that the Biden administration put out this rule that said pharmacies that receive federal funds had to keep in stock and dispense the abortion drug. Again, this is the drug that we've talked about, mifepristone. This is the lethal first pill that kills unborn children. So it's lethal for babies. It also harms mothers. Almost 11% of women who take this drug have adverse health effects. But this rule that HHS promulgated said that pharmacies, so very practically, patients who are using Medicare or Medicaid, any kind of federal funds that are a part of this, these pharmacies had to keep in stock the abortion drug. So it's an incredibly overreaching policy that they had in place. This policy was amended a little bit in 2023 when some faith-based pharmacies pushed back on this, and so they had to change it a little bit in 2023. But it's still been on the books. It's still been a source of confusion. It's still been a kind of a looming threat in the mind of some of these pharmacies, Jody. And so this is very, very welcome news. Of course, you and I want HHS to do more on this front to protect life, but as Christians, gratitude is a virtue, and so very grateful for this move by the Trump administration.
Yeah, it really is good news, and you brought that up. I mean, this is a great step forward, but there's more that can be done on this whole issue, as you just referenced, and we've talked about it before, but can you briefly reiterate some of the additional steps that you'd like to see the Trump administration take on chemical abortion?
Yeah, two things that come to my mind that we've talked about, Jody. Number one, right now we have law on the books, the Comstock Act, that says you can't mail abortifacient drugs across state lines. Chemical abortion drugs account for 63% of abortions that are now taking place. And so my hope is that the Justice Department would rescind the Biden era memo that they are relying on and actually enforce the Comstock Act. And then I think secondly, something that you mentioned, the Southern Baptist Convention resolution that was passed this past summer. In that resolution, we call for the FDA to revoke its approval of the chemical abortion drug, and at least while they're considering that and thinking about that, to reinstate the safeguards, including in-person doctor visits that women need to take. Because again, these pills are lethal for babies, they're dangerous for women, and the Trump administration could be doing more to protect children and babies and mothers, and we need to be continuing to advocate toward that end.
Yeah, and by the way, we do have, for those who are listening and watching right now, we do have a petition that you can join us with, calling on the Trump administration to take immediate action and decisive action to end the Biden-era policies that continue to allow this dangerous abortion drug, mifepristone, to be trafficked across state lines. And we're asking that the FDA strengthen their safety standards for this. And we're asking the Department of Justice to just enforce the law that's taking place. So to sign the petition, all of you can do this. Just text LIFE, L-I-F-E, LIFE to 67742. All right. David, yesterday the president signed another executive order, this one related to drug addiction and substance abuse. Of course, he's been on war with drugs. We've certainly have watched this with the strikes on drug boats and so forth in the Caribbean. But what should we know about the executive order that was signed?
Yeah, I think this is a great move by the Trump administration. This executive order simply frames the issue of addiction as a national public health crisis. And it's really seeking to try to coordinate the federal response to drug addiction and substance abuse, Jody. I didn't know this until I kind of dove into the executive order, but 48 million Americans, 1 out of 6 actually does struggle with addiction and substance abuse. And the president is clearly trying to leverage the power and resources of the federal government. You mentioned that the Trump administration has really focused, I think, on the supply side of this with his war on the drug boats in the Caribbean. I think this executive order is now trying to look at the demand side. And one thing that I know hasn't received a lot of press is this executive order does mention communities of faith as going to be an important part of this. And so again, my convention, Southern Baptist Convention, has put out resolutions dating back to 1997 on the importance of Christians ministering in this area of drug abuse and addiction. And so my hope is that with this executive order calling faith communities to be part of the problem, or part of the solution to this problem, that we'll see some major work on this.
Well, David, listen, thank you. I certainly agree with you on that. My hope is right alongside with yours. I tell you, I would love, probably, let me jot down next time I have you, I'd like for you to give us a little bit of time about the biblical workshops, biblical worldview workshops that you've been participating in all across the country. I think this is something people need to be aware of. And I want to thank you for doing that. I know you've got one coming up in Indiana. Several places. I think Ohio, Maryland, all sorts of places. I'd like to talk about that next time that we're together. But for now, David Closson, Dr. Closson, Director of the Center for Biblical Worldview here at FRC, thank you so much. Have a great weekend.